Okay, so these are the two remaining areas of your Unit 4, Integrated Reporting, Guiding Principles and Content, Elements of Integrated Report, and Adoption of Integrated Reporting. So let's see what do we have in this subunit, Guiding Principles. Before we start, let us just have a look. How does your integrated reporting framework looks like? This is the document. It's not a very long document. It's about 37 page long. It contains all what we have discussed so far. Using the framework, fundamental concepts, value creation, the capitals, the 6 capitals we were talking about, value creation process, guiding principles, we'll be doing content elements. There are 9 content elements. We'll discuss them all. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. These are the 9 content elements with their questions. So we'll discuss them all. So this is the document, the framework, 37 page long. And at the same time, this is one of the best integrated report ever presented to the world. IDLC Finance Limited. It's a leasing company based in Bangladesh. It was launched or founded in 1985 with just 5 people. And now this company, gentlemen, has a profit of 2.5 billion Bangladeshi currency. It's quite a large company now, IDLC. Look at the reports, an amazing report. So very well crafted. See, our capitals, financial capital, manufactured capital, intellectual capital, human capital, social and relationship capital, natural capital. That's what we have discussed. So they have given it so nicely. Like for example, intellectual capital means software, patents, licenses. Click and here you go. See, you have the complete picture. Information security, technology risk, process efficiency, IT requirements for customer service, IT requirements for employees. What are the highlights? They have an online credit appraisal system. They have complaint management system for employees. They have enhanced online, etc., etc. And what are the challenges? So see, everything, every capital has been given very nicely. It's a very long report, by the way, 313 page long. It contains the balance sheet, cash flows and all that, but it also contains what is needed and required under the integrated reported framework. One of the best. I just want you people to just go through, just skim through the pages, especially the capital aspect. The capitals, all these are given here. Right? All the capitals here given in detail. So this is how integrated reporting looks like. All right. So guiding principles and content elements of integrated report. Within this subunit, we will be covering the overview of guiding principles themselves, overview of content elements, those 9 questions that we need to answer, and relationship among content elements, and finally the questions we'll discuss. So let's just first have an overview of guiding principles. First of all, these guiding principles represent a certain challenge for us, because preparing an integrated report is quite a difficult task, because presenting financial statements, income statement, balance sheet and everything, it is standardized using US GAAP or IFRS. But integrated reporting is something new, and we are not just reporting everything in financial terms. There is so much in non-financial terms as well. This is something that is very hard for the report preparers, how to bring in the non-financial elements in your report, right? So this is something as a challenge. And moreover, we cannot distinguish between what is important, what is not important from the stakeholders' point of view. We cannot always, the guidelines cannot always be applied strictly, because users' needs keep on changing. So the standards do not force you to use this method or present this. It's just a guideline. They are just the principles. You will have to use your judgment to decide what to include, what not to include, because there are two things that are competing with each other. If we give too much detail, the information becomes complete. But giving too much detail loses what we call the conciseness. We have to give a lot in minimum. So Giving a lot will make the information complete, but it will not be concise, so they move in opposite directions. So we have to strike a balance. What is needed, what is to be given to the stakeholders, right? So it involves judgment. What should be included, what should not be included, because there is a conflict between completeness and conciseness. They move in opposite directions. So we will have to use the judgment to decide what to include and what not to include. Then let's discuss the guiding principles. The first guiding principle is strategic focus and future orientation. What does it mean? The strategic focus means the strategies selected by the business that will create value. And we have discussed yesterday, value means benefits. So strategy affects the ability to create value, ability to create benefit in the short term, in the medium term, and the long term. Since integrated reporting doesn't look at the short term, it includes your short term value creation, medium term value creation, as well as long term. That's why it has a much broader future orientation. Then next is connectivity of information. We discussed much more in detail that the departments, the functions in the organization, they are interrelated, they are interdependent. We need to show a holistic picture to the users of integrated report. Holistic picture means we should represent the interrelationship between different functions, between the different aspects of the organization, and how they create value over time. So it's not just production or marketing, it's the business as a whole, and how these individual components are interrelated with each other and how they create benefit for the stakeholders. Third, stakeholders relationship. We discussed yesterday, there are various stakeholders, bankers, suppliers, customers, employees, regulators, financial analysts, etc., exchanges even. So in integrated reporting, the key stakeholders, the most important one, the most important stakeholders in a company are the shareholders, those who have invested their capital in the company. They are the owner of the company. They are the key stakeholders. Fund providers like bankers. So the key stakeholders and the quality of their relationship with the organization, it should also be reported. How well we are managing a relationship with our fund providers. How well we are managing affairs with the regulators. This is normally not reported in your conventional financial statements. This is something new about integrated reporting. Your relationship with your vendors, the relationships with your bankers, those key relationships and their quality must be reported. That is something amazing. We never heard of anything like this before. The relationship with your bankers needs to be reported in your integrated report. That's the reason you saw that the report is huge. It's 313 pages long. So I doubt anyone has the ability to read all this 313. It's enormous. But whatever is there, see, our financial capital, manufactured capital, intellectual capital, human capital, everything is there and cross-referenced. Our financial capital, our financial resources, our manufactured capital, our tangible inputs. So everything is very nicely given. This report has been awarded the best integrated report so far, and this was issued in 2016. Right, so we need to show, disclose the quality of our relationship with our stakeholders. Next, materiality. We cannot disclose every piece of information. There is so much, unlimited information. We cannot bring it down to just a couple of 100 pages. So the amount of information could be unlimited. So extracting the useful information that is useful for the users of financial statement, users of integrated reporting. So we need to disclose information that has some substantial effect on the business ability to create value. That information that has the ability to generate value, benefit over the time. That's what we have discussed. So that we will include. We won't include everything and anything. All those pieces of information that has the potential to affect the firm's ability to create benefit for the different stakeholders. Agree? Conciseness. Well, I won't say this is concise by any standard. This is absolutely not concise. 313 pages. Omar, you need well, maybe a week to read this all. Even I will take a week to read the whole report, 313 pages. So, yes, we would like to be concise, but unfortunately there is so much that we have to report on. But despite that, we have to be clear and concise. We have to use our judgment to decide what to include and what not to include. We need to, you don't need to include everything. These are the smart people. These Bengalis are smart people. See, instead of just plugging everything there, you can cross-reference and put a link to the document within the report, and then just by clicking that hypertext or hyperlink, you can just reach that report or some document. So it's not that just you need to include everything. You can add cross-references. You can connect external documents with your report. So be concise as far as practical. Use your judgment, what is to be included, what not. Then reliability and completeness. Information given in your integrated report must be free from material errors. What is material? There is specific guideline in your integrated reporting framework that gives you a materiality matrix that is not included in your syllabus, but that's there, a guidance that helps you to decide what is to be included, what is not. It's called materiality matrix. That's not included here. So reliability and completeness, your information in the integrated report should be free from material errors, and it must include all the material information, and that material information, whether positive or negative, must be given. You have to be fair when you provide information, so whether positive or negative, both pieces of information must be given. Next, we have the consistency and comparability. Your integrated report, unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, the report prepared by IDLC was prepared in 2016, was awarded the best report, and I don't see any integrated report later on, because they would have taken a lot of time in compiling this report, so they didn't get the courage to make such a report again. A set of financial statements are easier to make. Every accountant can make it. But preparing an integrated report, this is sometimes beyond the scope of a normal professional accountant. Anyways, consistency and comparability means once you prepare a report, integrated report, the report from one year to another year should be consistent. Integrated report should be consistent over time. If you change, yes, things change. Yes, you may include something, you may remove something, but any change, any amendment should be explained. Why did we change? Changes and improvement made should be explained, right? So the thing is that integrated report from year after year must be comparable, and that is only possible if you apply the integrated reported framework every year. Just like when you prepare financial reporting using US GAAP or IFRS, your results from one year to another year will be comparable. Why? Because the framework, the standards are the same. So if you use this IR framework, your comparability and consistency to some extent would be enhanced. All right, next. We are still discussing the overview of content elements. Next topic within this. Each integrated report should contain 9 content elements. What are these 9 content elements and their questions? We'll discuss one by one. There are basically 9 questions. Each content element, in fact, is explained by a question, and then the organization will have to answer those questions. We'll discuss in detail. Organization will have to answer those questions. Each content element is explained through a question. Let us discuss these and go straight. I think it will be explained in a later slide. Let us just have an overview of the contents. Then relationship among content elements, as we have discussed earlier in our previous lecture yesterday. The organizational aspects are interrelated. We cannot ignore their interrelationship and interdependence. That is why it is called integrated. The meaning of integration, I'm sure those of you who have studied mathematics. Integration means combining 3 or 4 distinct objects. If you combine them, basically you are integrating them. So integrated report means a combined report. So having a holistic view of your organization and considering the interdependence of your different aspects of the organization. Okay, interrelationship, agreed. And again, these 9 content elements given in the form of questions are given in a specific order. Let me show you the questions first. These are the questions. We'll discuss these questions in detail. This is specifically given as per the, let me show you there. This is your document here. These are the 9 questions. Organizational overview, governance, business model, and they are given in a specific order. It says that you don't have to follow a specific order. Use logical way. You can change the order of these questions. You can use any suitable arrangement that you think is suitable for your organization, right? So no specific order is endorsed, but we will study all these questions in order. Let us read these questions and try to answer the question. Let us say you are running a business and you have to prepare an integrated report. You will have to answer these questions in your integrated report. Organization overview and external environment. So the first question that you need to answer in your integrated report: what does the organization do? And what are the circumstances under which it operates? Meaning thereby, what are the markets in which you are operating? What is your mission and vision? What is the competitive situation in the market in which you are operating? What are the external influences, social, technological, economical, environmental, legal, etc.? So the sketch of the environment in which you are operating. See, organizational overview and external environment. This is the first question an organization will have to answer in the integrated report. Question number 2, there are 9 questions. In fact, 8 questions and 1 element, that is the 9th one that doesn't contain a question. Let me show you. This 9th one is general reporting. It does not include any question. So basically there are 8 questions. All right, next, governance. The question that you need to answer in your integrated report: how does the organization's governance structure support its ability to create value, create benefit in the short term, in the medium term, and in the long term? For that, you need to answer what is governance, its leadership style, management operating philosophy, organizational structure, strategic decision-making process, ethical environment in the organization, how the decision, the long-term decisions are taken. You have to give this in description as well, in narratives. The governance structure and how does it support the business ability to create benefit in the short term, medium and long term. Decision-making process, strategic decision-making, leadership structure, etc. That's the second question that you need to answer. Third question, business model. What is the organization's business model? What is a business model? Business model is a model that describes how an organization will take input from the environment, how the organization will process that input into output and the final outcomes. So business model basically is that it's a value creation process from transforming inputs through its business activities and processes that we have studied in our cost management and converting that input into output. How will business do that? How the inputs will be converted into outputs, right? And at this point, we will have to identify our critical stakeholders. Business model will involve identification of critical stakeholders. Who are the critical stakeholders? Let me tell you. The topmost are your shareholders, the providers of capital, bankers, bondholders, and then we have the later hierarchy. So these are the most important one. Of course, there are customers and suppliers as well, but then you have to disclose that in the business model as well. Third, then fourth one, risk and opportunities. What is risk? We will discuss much more in detail in your CMA part 2. Risk is any unforeseen event, anything at all that prevents you from achieving your objectives. So whatever is preventing you from achieving your objective of qualifying as a CMA, that is a risk which you have to eliminate. Risk is something that hinders, that stops you from achieving your goals. There are many risks an organization faces also that might prevent it from achieving its objectives. So risks are unforeseen events that might prevent an organization from achieving its objectives. What are organizational objectives? Profit, growth, revenue maximization. increasing market share, providing a public service, etc., etc. There can be many objectives. So risk is something that will stop you from achieving your objectives. All right. So what are the specific risks? Financial, market, commodity risk, interest rate risk, etc., etc. We'll discuss in detail in CMA Part 2. So what are the specific risks and opportunities? Risks are the dangers and opportunities are potential benefits for the business. So what are the specific risks and opportunities that affect the organization's ability to create value? Everything finally ends at creating value. Organization is there to provide benefit not just to the shareholders but to all the stakeholders and to the society as well. So organization's ability to create value over short term, medium term and long term, and how is the organization dealing with them, how an organization is dealing with the risk. There are many risks, internal risks. Labor gets injured, your plants breaks down. External risks, regulatory risk, economic risk, interest rate risk, etc. How an organization will manage risks. Is there an effective risk management system in place? That's the question the organization will have to answer in its integrated report. Question number 5. Strategy and resource allocation. Where does the organization want to go? How does it intend to get there? That's the question you will have to answer. What do you want to achieve? What are your strategic objectives? How would you allocate your resources? How do you plan to achieve your goals? Right? So where does an organization want to go? Your aims, your objectives, specific objectives. And how do you allocate your limited resources so that we can achieve our goal? Then performance. It's very essential. To what extent has the organization achieved its strategic objective for the period? 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. To what extent have we been able to achieve? We plan to increase our sales by 50% in the next 5 years. After 5 years, have we been able to achieve something close to it? To what extent has the organization achieved its strategic objectives for the period? And what are the outcomes in terms of effects on the capitals? Those 6 capitals that we discussed yesterday in detail. So when you say performance evaluation, it has to be measured in financial and non-financial terms. Money and non-money. Of course, when we talk about integrated reporting, it's not always money. So we need qualitative success as well. The organization was able to create more benefit for the society. It contributed to the betterment of the environment. This is something non-financial, but it must be reported, right? Because natural capital is a part of your 6 capitals that we discussed yesterday. So doing something good for the environment is you're contributing to the natural capital. Training your employees so as to make them more effective is human capital. Purchasing new software or patent or a license will add to your intellectual capital. So how well have we performed on these individual aspects? Next, outlook. The question that you need to answer: what challenges and uncertainties in the organization likely to encounter in pursuing its strategy, and what are the potential implications for its business model and future performance? How do you see the future to be? Expectations about the future. This overall a long question simply means what are your expectations about the future? What are the business's expectations about the future? What could be the possible change in the environment? And what would be your response? Like, for example, in Pakistan, we are expecting an economic upturn in the next year, or in the current year, that's 2020, right? That's my expectation. Now, what would be my response? My response should be to invest, to expand, to enlarge my area of operations, because there is an economic opportunity. I should avail myself with this opportunity. So that's the question which you need to answer in integrated report. What challenges and uncertainties in the organization likely to encounter in pursuing strategy, and what are the potential implications of its business model and the future performance? Then we have the 8th question. How does the organization determine what matters to include in your integrated report? As I told you, the integrated reporting framework is just a 37-page document, and the integrated report that we just saw, that won the best report, 313. So basically, integrated reporting framework only provides you the guidance. Its implication is up to you. So how does the organization determine what matters to include in your integrated report, and how are such matters quantified? So, ladies and gentlemen, I told you that your integrated reporting framework includes a materiality matrix, a guidance that will help you determine what you should include in your integrated report and what you should not. So you have been given the guidance. It's up to you how you apply this. So more or less, integrated reporting is principle based. It is not a rule based approach. You have been given the guiding principles, and you will have to follow those principles in drawing up your integrated report. So I will recommend you to go through, just skim through that 313-page integrated report and see how much effort these people have put in creating a report like that. An amazing work, I must say. Finally, the 9th content is basically not a question. This item in the content basically is not a question. What it does then, it provides information about essential issues that should be considered during the preparation process, because this integrated reporting is quite an extensive, time-consuming activity. So what are the consideration or important aspects that must be considered? Materiality, which capitals to disclose, related explanation of business model, and all that. So that ends your subunit 4.3. Next we have the last part of your chapter 4.4, adoption of integrated report. Guys, integrated reporting has been adopted by thousands of organizations across the world, but the process is still very slow. It's very slow. These are the items that I will be studying here. Overview, challenges, building the business case, and integrated reporting in the future. These are the subtopics in your last topic 4.4, adoption of integrated reporting. So let us discuss them one by one. First of all, overview. As I told you, the success of IR depends upon its adoption rate. Adoption rate of, unfortunately, IR is low. I can see as an accountant that this is the reporting of the future. This is quite an elaborate and detailed approach to let all your stakeholders know, not just financial aspects, but as well as how the business has shown the capacity to create value in the mid-term, short-term, and the long-term. How effectively business has utilized its 6 capitals. So this is the reporting for the future. The process is slow, but adoption definitely in the future, it will speed up. So thousands of firms across the world have switched to IR. I would like you to see for yourself, and you'll be surprised there are many big names in the list. Just hold on a minute. ABN AMRO, ACCA, see, AXA, Bank of Barclays is there. So British Petroleum, British American Tobacco, see, British Telecom, Europe, see, a very large organization, CIMA even, that is Certified Chartered Institute of Management Accountants, CPA Australia. So large, the list is very long, see. So this is what is going to happen in the future. Tata even, Tata Steel, ArcelorMittal is also there, I hope so. See, here it is, ArcelorMittal, publicly listed company. Industries is based in Europe. It's one of the largest steel manufacturers in the world. So we just have an overview. Integrated reporting has been adopted by many thousands of organizations across the world. You have just seen the list. Lots of multi-billion-dollar organizations have adopted integrated reporting. The process is slow, yes, but I see that it would definitely gain momentum as the people will become, they will understand the benefits of integrated reporting. So I see that the adoption rate would increase. So overview is that success of IR depends upon its adoption rate. adoption basically. My word is adoption. It's a bit slow at the moment, but I expect that it's going to explode in the near future, because the investors, the regulators, they look for more, not just balance sheet and income statement. They want to see how the business will create value over the long term, over the short term and mid term. And this is something that is not available in your conventional set of financial statements. Right? So thousands of firms across the world have switched to IR, and I've just shown you the list. Right? And I'm sure most of you are aware that the big 4 audit firms, even the top 10 audit firms, they are now engaged in providing this service of preparing integrated reporting for the firm. Top audit firms are assisting their clients in switching to IR. Deloitte is the one leading the race, provide guidance and assistance to its clients to prepare integrated report. So the future is unfolding, so you should be prepared. Now, some challenges. Let us discuss some challenges in preparing integrated report. Why is it difficult? Why the firms are being slow in adopting integrated report? The first is materiality. How do we decide what is important, what is not? What should be included, what should not be included? Even though there is a materiality matrix in the integrated reporting framework, but despite that, you have to use your judgment. And that makes it very hard to decide what to include and what not to include in your integrated report. Right? Next, data quality. Financial numbers can be relied upon. Stock valuation, $5 billion, right? It is there, verifiable. Bank account balances in 5 banks is this much. This is something verifiable. But unfortunately, the non-financial data is hardly reliable. The relationship with your bankers, how would you write it in narratives? The relationship with your suppliers, it's non-financial. The quality of relationship is non-financial. How reliable that information be? I have excellent relationship with my vendors. How do you prove the excellency of relationship? That is something what we call the challenge in integrated reporting. Data quality, especially non-financial data, is hard to rely on. We believe on the audited financial statements. Why? Because the auditor's reputational capital, the auditor's certification or the audit report lends credibility to the financial statements. When the auditor says, okay, we start believing that the financial information is okay, right? That's why we believe, we rely on the financial statement. Unfortunately, there is no such assurance or audit of integrated report. Integrated reports have certain segments. Yes, financial aspect, the financial statements, balance sheet, income statement, cash flow statement, statement of change in equity, etc., and supporting schedules, they are audited. But the rest of it, which represents the 95% of your integrated report, is highly subjective. Who would audit the subjective content of your integrated report? That is a challenge also. Auditing something that is subjective is very difficult. It's a challenge. Auditing hardcore numbers is easy. But how do you audit the capability, capacity, value creation, intellectual capital, natural capital? They are very hard. Human capital, our staff is very competent. They are very hard working. How do I prove? How do I audit that? That's the challenge. Assurance in integrated reporting is difficult because there is so much subjectivity that auditing this information is quite hard. Again, integrated reporting framework is hardly, I'll show you again, a 37-page document. Compare this with the book, if you ever see, IFRS. Thousands of pages. US GAAP, thousands of pages. So GAAP and IFRS, they are extensive, detailed, standardized. But there is no such thing in integrated reporting. Lack of standards. Even these guidelines, these integrated reporting framework are not sufficient. They are not as elaborate and as detailed as we have in US GAAP and IFRS. That's the problem. Even we have some alternatives to IR as well, like SASB, Sustainability Accounting Standard Board, GRI, Global Reporting Initiative. But despite that, This is something very new. It's hardly 8 or 9 years old. The idea was conceived in 2010 and it's 2020 now, so about 10 years ago. So still it will take some time to take roots. And then finally, the challenge, the tone at the top. It's the tone at the top that decides what will happen in the organization. If the senior management say nay, it's a nay. When the senior management says yeah, it's a yeah. They are the one who say yes or no. They are the one who decide should we go for IR or should we not. They are the one who call the shots. Right? So you need to have the support from the chief executive officer and the board of directors to adopt the integrated reporting. Else, since we don't have such support, still it remains a challenge. So these are the 5 challenges we're talking about. All right, moving on. Building a business case. There are certain benefits and drawbacks of integrated reporting. Benefits that we have more clarity on reports. Our reports will now be able to give us an insight into the future, how the organization will create benefit in the short term, in the mid-term, and in the long term. How has the company employed its capitals, the 6 capitals, how effectively? So more clarity, better decisions, because your decisions are not entirely made on numbers, you have some non-financial information as well. Right? If you know that in British Petroleum, in their integrated report, they have disclosed the quality of their human capital, intellectual capital, natural capital. That will help you make a better decision, because as I told you at the start of the lecture yesterday, that the tangible assets now represent just 20% of your assets that generate value for the business. 80% was intangible, subjective. Through integrated reporting, we have brought up those assets. Natural capital was never reported. Intellectual capital was never reported. Human capital, competent staff was never reported. So we will make better decisions using integrated reporting. Right? We'll have better relationship with our stakeholders because we will be meeting their informational needs. Our reputation will be safe. There is lower reputational risk. Things won't go wrong, because if they go wrong, they have already been included in integrated reporting. We haven't cheated with our stakeholders. Low reputational capital. And most importantly, if an organization prepares integrated report, the bankers will be willing to lend. The bondholders will be willing to invest. The common people will be willing to purchase the shares in such companies. So resultantly, the company can obtain funds at the lower cost of capital. So this is the benefit for integrated reporting. So that favors the business case adopting integrated reporting. But there are certain drawbacks as well. I should be writing drawbacks. Collection of data can be time consuming. Collecting and analyzing data could be time consuming, costly. So far, we have been gathering the financial information regarding the company's profitability, liquidity, overall changes in equity, etc. That's what we do in a conventional financial reporting. Now we have to set up new data sets. Sustainability, a new data set. Carbon emissions, a new data set. Increase in intellectual capital, a new data set. This is a drawback. For that, you have to hire competent staff. That will increase your cost. So you will have to hire competent employees who would gather such data, make reports for you. And as you can see, just go through that report. That is 313-page report. And you will know that this is not the job of the normal financial accountant or the chartered accountant or an ACCA. Preparing integrated report is not something that an accountant can do easily. So you will have to hire specialist staff that is experienced in preparing integrated report. You will have to set up new controls other than the system of internal controls that we have read in our COSO framework. And moreover, integrated reporting in itself is not reliable unless and until it is audited. So so far there isn't such any advisory or any assurance services by the audit firms, but in the future, like the financial audit, like the audit of your internal controls, I'm sure you people remember AS5, Auditing Standard 5, in your CMA Part 1, tells you that the external auditors will come and conduct two types of audits. They will conduct the financial audit as well as the audit of internal controls. Now AS5 will have to incorporate the assurance on integrated report as well. So far it has not been made part of the law, but it will have to be. If you need to make the integrated reporting more reliable, you will have to get it audited. Assurance on integrated reporting, this would be the cost as well, right? Okay, it makes sense. So what do we see? What's the future of integrated reporting? If you ask me, I see a very bright future for integrated reporting. People need something more than just financial statements. They need more detailed information about the business capacity to create value, to create benefit in the short term, in the medium term, and in the long term. So there is an uncertainty, yes. The adoption rate is slow. There is an element of uncertainty, but as you can see, there are many big names in that list. British Petroleum, Barclays Bank, see, British Telecom, ACCA, SEMA, they have adopted integrated reporting. One of the largest organizations, ArcelorMittal, the largest steel manufacturer in the world, they have adopted IR. So yes, there is uncertainty, the speed is slow, but with the passage of time, more firms will adopt integrated reporting. And I believe as soon as integrated reporting is made mandatory by the law, you will see the growth in its adoption. IFRS is mandated by the law of the land. US GAAP is mandated through the law in the US. If integrated reporting is made mandatory under the law, then you will see how the firms will run after integrated. They have to follow the law. So far it is not a legal requirement. As told you, integrated reporting is entirely voluntary. You are not forced to do it, but if it is made a part of the law, then you will have to, and then you will be bound to adopt, and then you will see the dramatic growth in the adoption of the integrated reporting, right? Just like IFRS and US GAAP, they have been made mandatory by the law. That's why you see many firms, especially the listed one, they have to adopt IFRS, right? And finally, let's say there is uncertainty, agree. Laws do not yet endorse or make it mandatory to follow the integrated reporting. It is not required under IFRS and GAAP as well. But the institutional investors, who are the institutional investors? Like for example, Adamji Insurance Limited has got lots of cash with them. They use this cash to purchase the shares of other companies. So Adamji Insurance is an investor, but Adamji Insurance itself is an institution. It's a firm, it's a business in insurance. So such powerful investors, such powerful shareholders, they can play their role. They can pressurize the management to adopt integrated reporting. So institutional investors, powerful investors, they can pressure organizations to report about non-financial aspect. In other words, they can force the management to report via integrated reporting. So guys, that ends your chapter 4 completely. All 4 areas have been discussed. It's a very small chapter, just 13-page document. So please make sure you read them well. It's a very easy one, and it's not likely to be tested extensively in the coming attempt. So, but I'm sure it will be manageable for you. Good luck to all of you, and thank you for attending the lecture.